live. I think there are a couple of people here already. If you can hear me, please put something in the chat box. I think the microphone is working, but the way this Rumble interface is, I don't have a direct confirmation that audio is coming through. So I would appreciate it if you could tell me that you can hear me. I'm going to, before I start going over the whole business with Beretta, I'm going to try to load Rumble, I guess, in a separate page. Okay, it's myself, so we'll call it good and assume that the sound is coming through. Okay. Mr. Scotty posted 5x5. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Does it mean you can hear me? You cannot hear me. I'm sorry. It must be some sort of an American idiom that I am not familiar with. But I'm going to use the opportunity to open my notes and see what's happening. I have a few. So I already wrote a little bit about, kind of gave a Cliff's Notes on my local's website, but I figured I'm going to talk about it here as well. My original intent was to keep this thing brief. I flew in this morning. I got up, so I'm right now in Las Vegas. It's Pacific time. I got up at 5 a.m. Mountain time, 4 a.m. Pacific. You're good to go, sir. Thank you, Scotty. Much appreciated. Where was I? Yeah, I got up at 5 a.m., ran to the airport, barely made it to my flight, overslept by 15 minutes. Got to Vegas, rented a car, drove over to the range that Beretta rented out. Had a lot of fun. Honestly, it was a nice day. They organized it very nicely. Generally did a good job. The way they did this was they tried to make it structured, but there's a couple of hundred media people there, so it's kind of like herding cats. They tried to divide us into 5 groups and have us, go between 5 different stations, so that would go in some sort of an orderly way, and that worked great for a solid 15 minutes, and then it was just free for all. Of the 5 shooting stations that they had a pistol one, they had a rifle one, they had tactical shotgun, they have regular shotgun, kind of skid trap, that kind of stuff. Not that I know the difference between a skid and trap. And then they had another station for what they call PB, which I guess means premium Beretta. That's basically different shotguns that are 10 grand and up. Unfortunately, the whole shotgun business, they look pretty, don't misunderstand me, is mostly completely lost on me. I've never even tried, no once, unsuccessful. I've tried to hit a plate with a shotgun. Never tried it again. Not that I don't find it interesting. It is potentially interesting. I'm just really wary of trying to pick up another expensive hobby. Lord knows I have enough of them. But because of that, a lot of the traditional shotgun stuff on me is completely wasted. Now I have some experience with tactical shotgun. And this year, the Beretta 1301 becomes Mod 2 with a Pro Lifter and a better handguard and all that. And there'll be also a different version with a pistol grip and kind of a pistol grip and a tactical looking stock that kind of looked interesting, but from the somewhat limited experience I had, I'm not a huge fan of pistol grips on shotguns. They had one variant of the 1301 that just had a mag pull buttstock and a new handguard that has a few unlock slots. Decent sights. Honestly, I like that. If I were buying a semi-auto shotgun for defensive tactical purposes, I would probably buy the Beretta 1301. I've shot it a little bit in the past, and a fair amount today. Everything worked great. Beretta knows shotguns. In many ways, Beretta is really a shotgun company. It's trying to do a bunch of other things: handguns, rifles, optics, etc. Beretta Holdings, so the parent company of Beretta, owns a bunch of brands. Not all of them were represented at this event today. At this event, I saw Beretta, Burris, Steiner, rimfire ammunition from Norma, and Tikka and Sako, so rifles, bolt action guns from Finland. So that's the bulk of what I saw. Today. I think Beretta Holdings also owns Benelli. I think Sturger air guns. Somebody else. I already mentioned Norma. They own Norma Precision. Who else does Beretta own? Hold on. Those RWS, I think, and Holland. And yeah, and I'm sure they're looking for more acquisitions. They're kind of expansionist in nature, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Well, honestly, it's not a bad thing at all. Kind of, once again, kind of a nice event overall. So what stood out? So, as many of you know, my whole story with firearms many years ago, when I was 19 years old. I think I was 19. Started because of a Beretta 92 FS handgun that I thoroughly hated until this day. Until today. I no longer hate it after today because there's a new variant. But anyhow, so a friend of mine went to a shooting range, rented a Beretta 92 FS, as I recall. I got a bag of 50 rounds of ammo. I set up a paper indoor edge, right? So moved the target out about maybe 7 yards, something like that. And proceeded to load up and shoot 50 rounds of ammo out of that Beretta, and not a excuse me, and not a single round even touched paper. That's how bad it was. I suspect my twitching, pulling the trigger, Lord knows what. But I really dislike being bad at stuff, so I took it a little bit personally, and fast forward 28 years. Here we are. The interesting thing is that I actually have a little Beretta pocket gun, a prehistoric Beretta Jetfire. But generally speaking, I don't have any other Beretta firearms. And since that incident when I was 19 years old, I had never again shot a Beretta 92 of any sort. And one of the most pleasant revelations of today's experience for me was the discovery of Beretta 92X and 92XI. I'm not fully up to speed on the different variants of the different 92 variants, and I think I've got the nomenclature correct. And with these, the big differences are there is a frame-mounted safety. I'm not a big fan of slide-mounted safeties. There's a very, very, very really exceptionally nice trigger, and the grips are a little bit different. They're more vertical grips, and they call Vertex something grip. There was also another Beretta there that I shot, also frame-mounted safety, not slide-mounted safety. That had a regular rounded grip. That was a little bit big for my hand. I don't have huge hands. But the Vertex, the more vertical grip with a flat back strap, fit me very well, and I really shot that gun well. Soft, very, very controllable recoil, a very comfortable gun to shoot. I still didn't watch for a while. There was some other smaller guns like the Tomcats, had a couple of malfunctions, etc. All the 92X, XI guns ran perfectly. Once again, excellent trigger. The slide was red dot ready. The grip was comfortable. It's actually making me wonder if I should buy myself a Beretta. Maybe it's time to stop holding a grudge and bury a hatchet. Although, to be fair, that Beretta 92 that I could shoot 28 years ago, probably there was nothing wrong with it. I'm moderately certain it was me. But this latest iteration of the 92 design is very respectable. and exceptionally pleasant to shoot. Now, they didn't have any paper to shoot. I don't know what kind of a group I can shoot with it, but it was a variety of plates. Quite a few of them set up. I was able to shoot at plates, transition plate to plate, and all that. It's an easy gun to shoot. And it's an easy gun to shoot accurately, I think. I suspect if there had been paper there, I could print some decent groups with it. So that's that. One really interesting thing where there. So Beretta owns Burris and Steiner, right? And a lot of the guns that have Burris and Steiner optics. All the rifles have Burris and Steiner optics. Some of the handguns had the Burris Fast Fire 4. Some had Fast Fire C, but that's a new micro red dot sight from Burris that fits in RMS footprint. Several had a Steiner MPS, that's the enclosed red dot sight. I think I've talked and written about it in the past. And quite a few handguns there had Holosun red dot sights. So after I got done with the handguns, I walked over to the people I'd known, Burris and Steiner, politely inquired how come at the Beretta event where Steiner and Burris are the optics brands, there are Holosun red dot sights. They did not have a good answer. There was some finger pointing at each other here and there and stuff, but I found it thoroughly amusing. I'll be honest with you. It's kind of funny. What else with handguns? There was the PX4, and there's a new one called, I think, PX4 Storm. One of them was set up as more of a race gun. There was a full size and a compact, like commander size model that was set up as more of a carry gun. I think I shot a PX4 in the past, and I didn't like it as much. Every PX4 variant I shot today, there were quite a few. It was one of those things where they basically load up magazines, you shoot as much as you want, right? So I shot them a good bit. Every PX4 variant I tried, the trigger was good, the reset was good, a little bit longer reset, but not bad at all. Recoil impulse was fairly well controlled, so the bore axis compared to your hand looks like it's a little bit high, but it did not see any undue muzzle flip. The gun comes back down to your point of aim very nicely. I was very pleasantly impressed. Then there was the Beretta ARX. I think they introduced it last year. That's a slightly smaller gun. Looked to be striker fired, something like that. That one had kind of a spongy-ish trigger. I think that's just a Beretta take on the basic Glock form factor. Nathaniel, how about the BRX one straight pull? Yeah, they had a bunch of them. I shot quite a few of them. They even had a competition with one, and where you time yourself on 3 targets and 3 station targets, one moving one, and I stood there for a while everybody else was doing that. I gave up and walked off. Should have shot it, but I did shoot the BRX one quite a bit. I'll talk about that momentarily. Let me just wrap up with handguns, and we'll move on to the rifles. Where was I? Yeah. So ARX I didn't like as much. It was perfectly serviceable, but it's one of those things, if you're trying to out-Glock the Glock, I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do. It needs to be, in some ways better than a Glock. Now, I'm sure ARX was a reasonable gun. I shot it a little bit, and it was reasonably easy to shoot. Can't really complain, but it was not distinctive in any way. And then there were a bunch of different variants of the Beretta Tomcat, the 32 ACP, several of them suppressed, which I found surprisingly enjoyable. It's a tiny little pocket gun. I like pocket guns. And it was fun to shoot. But I did see one Tomcat go down. They had one set up with a compensator and all that. And I think the slide went kaput on me. I do recall somebody here, may have been John, telling me that there is the Tomcats have a history of cracking slides, and if I buy a Tomcat, I should get the inox version, the one with the out of stainless steel that's a little bit beefier and all that. So perhaps that is what happened. I didn't really go into details. Like, it was broken before I got there. With rifles, since there was a question about the BRX one straight pull, they do have that, and I shot it a good bit, and it's a pretty nice gun. It's a single stage trigger. I generally prefer two stage, but as far as single stage triggers go, it was not bad at all. The ones they had, they were not tuned to be super light, but I think they're adjustable. I could be wrong, but I think they're adjustable. The way the gun is packaged is pretty nice. There are variants with a carbon fiber barrel and a steel barrel. I think the carbon fiber barrel clocks in, it's about 6.5 pounds, something like that, 6.7. That's, excuse me, that's a long day. That's very good. A couple of people there I know who've been shooting over for a while, saying they are ridiculously accurate. That would not surprise me. These are hammer forged barrels, and the way they hammer forge them, they take this, the mandrel that they use, whatever it's called. They shape the barrel and the chamber at the same time with the same tool. That usually, for companies who do a lot of this, results in a pretty accurate barrel. I didn't ask, but I assume that all the stuff is hammer forged in Finland, where Sako and Tikka make their stuff. I mean, if Beretta owns Sako and Tikka, they should be using theirs. I don't know if all I know it could be elsewhere, but regardless, I shot a couple of them at 308 and a 6.5 Creed at some plates reasonably far away, and they seem to have shot very well. Once again, without paper, I can't tell you how well exactly they shoot. Beretta guarantees better than MOA accuracy, and from the little that I've seen, I believe it. The interesting part about the BRX1 is that, so my phone tells me that people are commenting, and I want to see what are they're commenting on. So if you're watching this live on Locals, okay, we're fine. If you're watching this live on Locals or Rumble or YouTube, if you have a question, if there's anything you want to ask, put it in the chat box. If you put it into a comment under the video, I do not see it until we're done, and then I go look for this, right? So if you're watching this in real time live, if you have a question, put it in the chat box. If you are watching this as a rerun, as a recorded video, then the only option you have is adding something into the comments, and make sure you tag me so that I see it, and then I'll try to address it the best I can. Anyhow, going back to the BRX one. So it was out in Europe for a couple of years. Now it is in the US in a few different calibers. I saw 300 Win Mag and 308 and 6.5 Creed, and I'm sure there are other calibers. When I go to SHOT, I have a meeting with Beretta and Burris guys and Steiner, all that kind of the same place there. I have a meeting with them on Tuesday, midday, I think 1 o'clock. There are several things they want to show me that they've talked a little bit about that were not available here. So I'm not going to talk about those yet, because it's not clear to me how much they can disclose and how much not. At least one product that they mentioned is getting released at SHOT, which means it's getting released at Tuesday, so I can't talk about it now. But there's enough stuff. There's enough stuff to talk about. With Beretta BRX1, the carbon fiber barrel version, I think, is about $1,900, and the regular steel barrel of $1,500 or $1,600. Basically, you have a fairly fully featured straight pull gun for under $2,000, sometimes well under $2,000. And it's accurate, and it seems to be fairly handy. The stock is reasonable, and it shoots well. So we'll see, right? So as far as head-to-head straight pull stuff, it's going head-to-head with Savage Impulse, and we'll see which one does better. The way the bolt on the BRX one does, so there's basically a bolt carrier and a bolt head in it, in some ways reminiscent stylistically, not the way it looks, but the way kind of it functions. I think, somewhat reminiscent of an AR bolt, right? So there is this kind of a helical. I think I took a picture of it. Hold on. Let me see. If I find the picture, I'll show you. I took a picture of the top of the bolt. And there is a kind of a helical. There you go. I found the picture. Let me see if I can share it and show you. Crop top photos. There we go. Okay, so you should be able to see my mouse now. See this little helical tab? So that's basically the bolt carrier that goes back and forth. The shiny thing here is the bolt head, bolt, whatever you want to call it. And it looks like there is a pin in the bolt, and there's this kind of a helical groove in the bolt carrier. So when you shovel this thing forward, the pin moving in the groove forces the bolt to rotate and lock. And conversely, when you are doing the extraction, you just pull back on the bolt, and the same pin is going to force the bolt to rotate back in opposite direction and unlock. Okay. I hope it will make sense. Proprietary magazine, honestly, I didn't ask, but it definitely looks like a proprietary kind of an orange-ish magazine. I think, see this orange stuff underneath there? That's actually the top of the magazine, so it does look like it's a proprietary design. That's different guns. Let's see. Yeah, this is better. See this orange stuff here that's sticking out? That's the magazines. Kind of squeeze them and pull out, so it looks like these are proprietary ones. I don't know. I think there are some other Beretta guns, bolt guns that used to exist. I don't know. Maybe still do. I don't know if this is shared with any of them. It's not shared with the Tikka Sako guns, so it's probably proprietary. The safety sort of makes sense. It's a nicely streamlined gun. I think the stock, it was comfortable enough as far as plastic stocks go. It seemed to be stiff enough. Am I gonna buy one? Yeah, maybe. Honestly, I'm mildly curious. It's an interesting design. I like straight pull guns. It does not have the elegance of a Strasser. Doesn't have the price tag of a Strasser either. I'll be honest with you, right? For the price of one Strasser, you can get 3 of these. And once again, I'll talk to them a little bit more. I think the barrels and the bolt heads are interchangeable. So if you want to do something with different calibers, you can. So both of these are carbon fiber barrels. Spend a little bit of time trying to balance them and all that. And I think they handle well, and I think they're balanced nicely, and the trigger is good enough. Again, there is no limit to perfection. So we'll see. Nathaniel, is the action smooth when you cycle it? The Savage Impulse looks finicky. So I've tested the Impulse also, and actually Impulse shot well. The way the Impulse, or the Blazer for that matter, or the Strasser, the way they function, when you try to cycle the bolt, there's first a little bit of action of the bolt. The bolt kind of does a little bit of this rotation thing, not rotation, kind of this. You move when you pull on the bolt first, just the bolt handle moves, and then the bolt, right? So when the bolt handle moves, it's a little bit of the jolt of this primary extraction. And with the Beretta, the bolt doesn't do any of that. The bolt handle doesn't do any of that, right? So the whole thing moves front and back together. And on some of the cartridges that I had on one of the, I think that was a 6.5 Creed gun, the extraction was a little bit rough. So it's not 100% clear to me how much leverage the primary extraction has. But everything I shot, everything went in, the cases went out. To me, it looks like the bolt prefers being. This is not a bolt where you want to gently, using one finger, slide things out. You grab that thing and you pull, right? But you can cycle it really, really fast. So the big advantage of straight pull guns is that as far as bolt guns go, you can cycle them really, really fast. Is it faster than other straight pull guns? It's hard to say, without doing a side by side because they're all fast. I think I was able to run the Strasser a little bit faster, but I had a Strasser for months. I've had a lot of time to learn how to shoot the Strasser. With the BRX1, I had it for a little bit today, and you could run the bolt fast. Yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I should borrow one from Beretta and go spend some time playing with it. It's an interesting gun. Yeah, but it definitely had the potential for good accuracy. Once again, in a grand scheme of things, I like what I saw. This slightly rough extraction ejection cycle on some guns could be there was something about that ammo. Maybe it was a hotter ammo loaded for TRG for 22 or something. I don't know. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Northman, I still think straight pull is just a trend. I don't know if it's just a trend. There are several compelling designs that have their strengths, that have their weaknesses. I would prefer not to see them go. But on the other hand, do I think that straight pull is going to take over and all the bolt guns moving forward will be straight pull? No. The market's big enough. I think there is space for all of them. Okay. I shot the Sako TRG-42 M10 and 358 Lapua. That's a nice gun, nice trigger. I like that quite a lot. There was this, I keep forgetting what it's called. Beretta started beginning to bring in this pistol caliber carbine, which, I generally think pistol caliber carbines are useless weapons, or reason is useless again. They're called PMX. So they brought one PMX without sights, without a red dot sight, without a pistol brace, and all that. So I shot it a little bit, aiming just down the flat top, and there were 15 yards ahead of plate. You could hit him. The way the safety was, it needed to be reshaped. It was kind of cutting into my hand a little bit, and they admitted it. The guys who had it were super nice, super open, just pleasure to talk to. And there were some seriously good shooters there. A couple Italian guys who were good. JJ Racazzo was there. Watching JJ shoot was something. The man's fast. Then later, when I got done a little bit earlier because me shooting skeet and trap is just a waste of ammo. So I went and sat down and started writing up my summary, and then there was some sort of social event. So some very polite lady stops by, drops her backpack on the chair next to me, asks me if I don't mind keeping an eye on it for a few minutes. She needed to go somewhere. I go, sure, absolutely. She goes away, comes back. I look at her. She looks familiar. Then I realized it's Kim Rodi who won the Olympics with trap and skeet for, I don't know, 10,000 times or something. It's kind of cool. But definitely some good shooters there. It was really impressive to see what they can do with their gun of choice. Definitely impressive. Let's see, rifles. So Sako and Tikka were there. They don't have anything very new. There were a few different, camo patterns and texture stocks and stuff like that. Tikka introduced in the US, I think, for the first time. They've had it in Europe for a while. There's something called the Batu rifle. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It basically has a little top rail and a barrel with a front and rear sight. I shot it a little bit. Those are perfectly reasonable sights. I don't know. It's 20H308, weighs 7.5 pounds, and then you'll still put an optic on it. It starts getting a little bit heavier. One of the things I don't like about the hunting 308 hunting guns from Tikka is that they use 1 and 11-inch twist. I prefer faster twists. I've had good luck with that. But there were several Tikka Sako rifles that all shot well. Out in the corner there was a Tikka T1X, And the Norma was trying to show off their new long-range rimfire 22 LR ammo with a different bullet shape that supposedly remains extremely stable through transonic flights. I shot it a little bit at 75 and 150 yards, but they were not well set up. They found some plate at 300, but you could kind of barely see it. Couldn't quite read the impact because it was just some old silhouette laying there sideways. And then the scope they put on the T1X, if they really want to shoot, 300 something yards, 370 yards. With the 22, they needed a different scope. So that part of it was not thought through very well. One of the scopes I found that it elect, I fire a shot and it's way off, right? And I tell me it's all sighted in and the shot is way off. And I know my hold wasn't that bad, right? So I looked at it carefully. The scope was wobbling on a gun. So whoever set it up was not tightening it. So I tightened it for them. That particular scope was the Steiner H6XI 212 by 42. And I see Rob is asking a question here. Oh, there are a couple of questions I need to address. You know what, before we get into the scopes, so Mr. Heterodox is asking, do you prefer the taper stock compared to the flatter parallel to the barrel stocks? Oh, good question. It depends on the type of a gun. So for hunting guns, I tend to prefer slightly tapered stock for several reasons, but one of them, the way it usually works, this slight taper. If I'm shooting off of something improvised or some unusual support or something like that, with a slightly tapered stock, I have a better chance of making small adjustments just by moving a little bit. For more precision stuff, flatter stocks generally sit more firmly on bags and on tripods and stuff like that. They work well. In the grand scheme of things, I can't say that I'm all that hugely picky about that. One of my favorite hunting stocks is a Macmillan Game Scout. I have an old Tikka 695 in a Macmillan Game Scout. And that one is interesting. It has the fairly vertical grip from the A5 stock, but a comparatively standard hunting forearm that's a little bit tapered, etc. And as far as the configuration goes, I really like that stock. So that's that. Robbie Razer, what scopes are you most excited for at the show? So we'll see what's actually at the show because there are several things. Leopold Mark IV is interesting and all that. Today was just a Beretta range day, so I had a chance to look at the Steiner and Burris stuff, and not all of it. They told me that they're about a few. So, some coming out during shot shows on a couple of days, and there are some prototypes they would like me to see, and I probably won't be able to talk about those at all. Of the stuff that was at the Beretta range day today, there were a couple that I found really interesting. With Steiner, so I have not had a chance to really test T6XI or H6XI scopes. I had grand plans, and then 2023 it was a shit show of a year. So I used this opportunity to look at them a little bit. I spent quite a lot of time looking through the 530 by 56 T6XI, and I can do it with somewhat more authority now because I've spent so much time with Burris XTR Pro, and I think optically they're more or less the same scope. Steiner has different turrets, much more sophisticated, unlocking and all that, and that's really the reason for the price difference. Optically, I think they're more or less the same. H6XI at the last SHOT Show, I saw the prototypes, and then a little bit later they released them, which was good. And the H6XI scope that I was most interested in, and thankfully they had it on a rifle, albeit blue, so I tightened it, was the 2-12 by 42. For now, all the H6XI scopes are in MOA, but it looks like Emil-Radian versions are coming, which I'm very excited about. For backgrounds, so T6XI, they're tactical scopes, they're 34mm tubes, a little bit beefier. H6XI are similar, more or less same designs optically, with slightly different mechanics, and in 30mm tubes, so there's a little bit less adjustment range and all that, but they're trimmer and lighter. And the H6XI 2 to 12 by 42 is an excellent scope. And once they put a miller-radian turret and reticle in it, it will be a very strong contender for the MPVO, medium power variable optic crowd. We keep on lamenting there's not enough scopes that would fit that description, and Burris showed me two today that I think have every chance of becoming very dominant in this field if they don't screw up something else with reticles, something like that. But so H6XI looked very, very good to me. Now, on the Burris side of things, there were some serious releases. One is in the Eliminator 6 rifle scope. It's 4 to 20 by 52. It looks now like a conventional rifle scope, so you use 34mm body, so you just use 34mm rings to mount it. Burris did have new Signature Z rings, 4 screws with the inserts and everything. It looked very, very good. I'll be getting several. I like their plastic insert rings. Now this new Eliminator has sight focus, like I said, looks just like a normal scope, and some of the controls for the laser rangefinder integrated into the sight focus. Everything is done nicely. Allegedly, it can range something like a deer hide, something like that, up to 1800-ish yards. For how far it can offer a ballistic solution, so I think the distance at which it can offer a ballistic solution, somebody asked me that in the comment, is really limited by the reticle tree. So the way the reticle in the Eliminator scopes works, it's a primary vertical where there are these little tiny little LEDs, probably, or something that lights up, dots that light up to show you the holdover. And it looks like they increased the density of those again. Now I think each dot is, Lord, 1/6 MOA, 1/6 I think MOA. So that's a granularity of the elevation hold, which is very good. And then they have little crosses, like a tree type arrangement, and that you use to hold for wind. So vertically, this tree that they have can only cover so much space. And whatever ballistic solution the scope can generate is essentially limited by the size of the reticle on low power and high power. So theoretically, you can you could shoot the longer distance on lower power, right? Because you see the entire because of how much space the reticle takes. The reticle is in the second focal plane, but the way the ballistic computer works, it knows what magnification you are at, and it adjusts the holes accordingly. It seemed to work. I shot a little bit at the same target at different magnifications, and they were adjusting for it well. There are some onboard sensors for pressure, temperature, all that sort of jazz. The overall thing seemed to work well. Aside from the improvements in the form factor, these Eliminator 6 optically to me looked like a vast improvement over the earlier versions. I think it was absolutely excellent. So yeah, so that is very, very encouraging. I think conceptual Eliminator was always a nice scope, but there were some significant optical compromises, and it still worked, but there were optical compromises. This latest one looked very good. I think they did a good job. Also new are two more models in the Veracity PH line. So these are the scopes that have kind of a slightly detuned IFS system from Steiner, where at the top of the screen, let me see if I can find an appropriate picture. At the top of the screen, there is a small display that shows you taking a good picture in those conditions. Handheld turned out to be tricky. Oh, there we go. So we'll try to use this picture. It's not great, but it will have to do. Let me share my screen again. Should be able to see it. Yeah, says you're sharing. I'm sharing. So this is on fairly low power. So theoretically, this is in a new Veracity PH 3 to 15 by 44, and you see up top, I have dialed the turret to 403 yards, and there's a plate out there that I was aiming at. The one top left here, the red one, that's 550, and I'm aiming at the blue plate that is about 400 yards away. Okay, so optically, these are very good because the way these heads-up displays introduced is via beam splitter, and it's only up top. Like I said, if I look very carefully, I can kind of see where that ends. So the rest of the optical path is not really compromised in any way, shape, or form. Let me see if I have a high magnification picture. I'm taking all these handheld pictures, and it was hard. So this is the other Veracity PH. That's a 2.5 to 12 by 42 model. It also had a heads-up display inside. This one I arguably liked even more. The reticle in a smaller scope, in a 2.5 to 12 by 42, is a little bit different, and I think it's probably the best general-purpose hunting reticle on the market today for a scope where you assume you're going to be dialing. And with these scopes, with Veracity PH, you will be dialing. The way they're done, when you start dialing the elevation turret, the heads-up display inside tells you exactly how much you have dialed, which is huge. It basically means that you don't have to go by touch, and you don't have to move your head out to go and look at the turret. You can just continue looking through the scope and all the information you need to make a shot. How much you've dialed and all of that is right in front of you. It makes a significant difference in terms of a success of a shot, I think. I liked it. I'll take some better pictures. And I'll show you once again. For now, everything I saw today was still an MOA, but there will be a Miller-Radian version. I need to make sure they don't scrub with the reticle. So of the two scopes, all the scopes I saw today, two, once they have Miller-Radian versions, have every chance of becoming the dominant MPVO medium power variable optic designs. I was quite impressed by that. So Robbie, what scopes I'm most excited for at the show? It's hard to say because I don't know what else is out there of the stuff that's been announced. Mark IV is very interesting. These new Burris ones are very interesting. There are a couple different prototypes they want to show me that look very promising. What else is going to be out there? I honestly do not know. So ask me on the last day of the show what I found that makes me the most excited. From what I have seen today, these medium power Steiner and Burris options looked extremely promising to me. And a 2.5 to 12 by 42 is fairly compact, fairly light. Has that heads-up display thing. The reticle is nicely visible in a low light. And for an MPVO type scope, where I assume you're going to be dialing elevation, that's going to be it's going to be damn near perfect. Very interesting solution, very clever scope, and something that truly provides a qualitative jump in capability, I think. Okay, that's the gist of it. I think if I'm looking at my notes, if you can think of anything else to ask, you have a couple more minutes. And if you do not have anything, I am going to wrap up and go to sleep. It's been a long ass day. It's only 9 o'clock here on the Pacific Coast. I guess I am getting old after all. But I got up early and I need my beauty sleep. Lots of it. If anybody can use some beauty sleep, that will be me. All right, guys. Questions, concerns, Christmas wishes. Northman goes, can't see you on YouTube or Rumble. Nathaniel can see it on YouTube. Now that's interesting. So you can't see it means when I was sharing my screen, you couldn't see it, or you can't see me now. Huh. Okay, you know what? Let me open a window for, let's say, YouTube, and see what I see. I'm streaming using Rumble Studio, which I has the advantage that can also stream to locals and Rumble a bunch of other stuff fairly natively. So, okay, let me see. So I can see myself, I can hear myself, but whenever I do the screen sharing, it doesn't show. How interesting. Huh. I honestly have no idea. Northman goes, oh, it's okay now. So, Northman, were you not able to see me at all, or were you not able to see the screen I was sharing? Let me see. I'm going to share a screen right now again, and I will then go and see you on the YouTube. So I have the... Okay, so right now it shows I have a notification that I'm sharing. Oh, that's why. Okay. It may have been my scrub or not. Ah, okay. Now, guys, do you see the screen being shared? Or did you see the screen when I was sharing it before? Or not? Oh, I see what I mean. Okay, no screen share. Got it. All right, guys, I think it was my screw up. So what was not clear to me, there is something here called the presentation mode. And when I'm trying to share my screen, I need to share it, and then I need to put it in the presentation mode. Now you should be able to see it. There may be a little bit of a delay, but you should be able to see it. Now let me go. So now it shows on YouTube. I see it on YouTube. Oh, very good. And let me see if I can see it in Rumble as well, just to be sure. Okay, I think that was my screw up. My apologies. But I bet now you can see it everywhere. Let's see. Yeah, now you should be able to see it. Okay. All right, I think that mystery has been solved. It's just me not quite using the Rumble Studio properly. I do apologize. Okay, so since I've screwed that up before, let me show you a couple of pictures I've been showing. So this is the smaller the Veracity PH scope, so 2.5 to 12 by 42. And next to it, and tell me if you guys see the mouse, my mouse that's moving, are these new signature rings. Somebody asked me in the comments earlier if they're steel or aluminum. I'm not sure. Historically, they've been steel, so I assume that's probably the case, but I'll find out. But they do have those signature plastic inserts, which I like. The XTR signature rings are large and beefy and have 6 screws and all that, and I think that's overkill for most applications. This size-wise, this is about right for the bulk of the things that I do. So I anticipate using quite a few of these rings. This was my attempt to take a photo of the reticle through the 2.5 to 12, and it didn't quite work. This was on high magnification. It's blurry, so I do apologize. It has a fairly thick pose going almost up to the center. Stylistically, it's similar to the reticle in the Revit Acura scope. I'll take better pictures, and I'll show you better pictures at a later point. This is the view through the 3 to 15 by 44 scope. Notice the heads-up display up top. I've dialed 403 yards using the elevation turret, and it's giving me that. The huge advantage of this approach is that when you're dialing, I never have to look at the turret. I can continue looking through the scope, and I know exactly at what I have dialed. Okay. That is a huge advantage. One of the things that is important for long range shooting, precision hunting, etc. Once you find something in your scope, you never want to look away. It's one of the reasons this incredibly tactile feel of some of the turrets at like tangents, for example, is so important, because if it's dark, you can't see the turret, or if you're looking through the scope and you don't want to look away, being able to dial and go by feel is a not need reading glasses exactly, is a huge advantage. That's one of the reasons I have been paying so much attention to all this electro-optical integration with the scopes like Revix, like Steiner, IFS. So what you have here with the Veracity PH is for $1,000, a little bit more, something like that, but something more affordable than the five something $1,000 for the Steiner IFS. You are getting a lot of that same functionality. And there's a ballistic engine involved. You program this thing for your cartridge, and you can have it when you dial. You can have it show how much you dialed in mils, I think, or as a default, you can show it what kind of a distance you dialed for a particular cartridge. That's probably more relevant for hunting. And these new scopes look pretty decent optically. The original Veracity PH was the 40-20x50 introduced last year. So that's still in line, but I think they tweaked the optics on it a bit. And the new ones are 3-15x44 and 2.5 to 12x42. And they both looked good, like legitimately good. I'll need to see when they're available, but if they are telling me that they will introduce Milleradian versions, I'm probably going to wait, and I really, really want to test the 2.5 to 12x42. I think it's going to be one hell of a medium power variable optic. I think it's a big deal. It is a big deal, but if the battery dies, you still have your normal turrets, and outside it's marked with a normal scale. So if your battery dies, you just have a perfectly normal scope where you have to do all the usual things, keeping an eye on what the turret is doing and all that sort of jazz. Okay, it's in terms of true usability, it's a serious advancement, I think. I started, I was sitting there and I had a little bit of time to kill, and I'll just show you, started writing up the whole business. I think I'm going to do another article, because I thought just talking to people, it's remarkable how many don't get it. I will try to do a more thorough article. I've done some in the past. I'll approach it from a slightly different angle, but an article on dialing versus holding or a fusion approach, and why it matters, and why absolutist answers of just one or just the other are usually wrong. The people who talk about dialing everything usually oversimplify what it does to shooting position, stuff like that. And the people who are saying hold for everything, going out sometimes into extremes, people who like the steaming pile of shit that is the Horus radical, they just misunderstand how human vision works. So there is a little subtlety here. Maybe I'll do an article on that, or maybe I'll do a video. We'll see. Yeah. So are they ever going to offer one in mil? Yes, they're telling me that they are. I'll try to get more details when I have a meeting with them on Tuesday. But both H6XI, I believe, and the Veracity PH will come in Milleradian within not too distant future. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing for the moment. Okay, Northman, quick question: Delta Hornet 126 500 Canadian, a Burris R26 for 520 Canadian, or I wait for PLX Nova in 6 weeks for $460. Nothing else but Falcon or Riton are available. So Delta Hornet and Burris RT6 are more or less the same scope, made by the same OEM, similar price. I think it's more or less the same scope. So between those two, pretty much pick the one where the reticle works better for you. I am slightly partial to the Delta Hornet because the BDC reticle for it, the one with wind bars, I did it for them. So that's my design. So I like it. But otherwise, I mean, I think it's more or less the same scope. So PLX Nova is sort of an interesting design. It's a newer design, unlike the Delta and the Burris. The PLX Nova in 6 weeks for $460. Okay, I think there is something. There is a disconnect here. So there is a going to be a PLXC with a Nova reticle coming soon, but $460 sounds cheap. So PLXC is a $1,500 scope. So I'm not sure where you're finding it for $460. I sure you don't mean the SLX Nova? There is an SLX Nova 1 to 6, and there is a new one they just announced, SLX Nova 1 to 10. Yeah, SLX, okay. So do you mean the 1 to 6 or the 1 to 10? I have the 1 to 6, and I've looked at it carefully, and it is a nice scope. And if you want to go fast on 1X, that fiber illuminated dot uh, is a good thing to have. I'll just say that. Honestly, so between these 1 to 6, okay, thank you. It just depends on what's more important for you. So in a traditional LPVO interpretation, you're saying, okay, 1X is the most important thing and everything else is gravy. And if 1X is the most important thing, I think the nuclear bright reticle of the SLX Nova has an advantage. It's generally a pretty nice scope, but in terms of overall optimization, I think the Filipino Hornet and RT6 are a little bit better. Not by much, but they're a little bit better. But on one power with that reticle on, the SLX is a more confidence reassuring design. As you start getting a little bit further out, I think somewhat better optical optimization of the Hornet and RT6 has a little bit of an advantage. And as you get over a little bit further out to the extent of what you're necessarily willing to do with the 1 to 6, Hornet's reticle gives you some wind holes, and RT6 reticle doesn't. So if you use this primarily, if you don't care too much about wind and you do a lot of stuff on one power, I'd say SLX with a Nova reticle might be your best bet. If you like blinking a little further out, then maybe Delta Hornet. Mr. Heterodox, offset red dot reduces the need for 1X. Yes and no. It just depends on how you run it. I like to use offset red dots, and I know there's a school of thought out there, and some very, very competent and well-respected people that I respect a lot, are basically setting up their LPVOs as the offset red dot being their primary optic on one power, and then they keep the LPVO on high magnification. And that works, and it's great. I played with it here and there, and I'm not convinced that's how I want to do it. That's how I set up my prismatics. But for low power variables, for me, one power is reasonably important. To be fair, both Hornet and RT6 are pretty good on one power, but I think they just don't have that nuclear bright reticle. To me, offset red dot with a low power variable, some of it is for potentially speed, but for me, the biggest thing is redundancy. I just like having two independent sighting systems on a gun. It's the paranoid in me who thinks that it's a good idea. So there's that. All right, gentlemen. I think I am slowly but surely running out of steam, so I'll give it another minute. If you have any other questions, bring it up now. And if not, I'm going to bid you goodbye and go to sleep. So Let's see. Tomorrow is a shot show. Northman. I want to keep it simple, no offset. Anyway, thanks for the answer. Delta it is. Okay. If you get the delta, so they have two radicals. They have a Miller-Radian radical and a BDC radical. Miller-Radian radical, it's decent. I have one. They copied some things that I briefly proposed for them, and I did some others. I'm not sure how excited I am about it. But the BDC radical that has a horseshoe and the wind bars, that one is mine. If you end up with that one, let me know how you like it. I'm always curious. But anyhow, so tomorrow is the shot show range day, but the weather is supposed to be shit again. Last year, the weather got so bad they actually closed it down early. So we'll see what happens today. We'll see tomorrow. We have the range day, then I have dinner with a bunch of people, got invited to something. That's what happens during shot show. I get invited to things. But some interesting people, which I'm looking forward to. And then afterwards, I'll be back here and I'm going to try to do a live stream. I think the dinner is supposed to be at 6. So I'm probably going to do a live stream at about the same time as today, maybe a half hour later. So today I think I started around 8:20, 8:30 Pacific time. Now it's about 9:24, an hour ago. Yeah, so around 8:30. Tomorrow probably going to be around the same time, between 8:30 and 9 Pacific time, and I'll let you know if there's anything interesting that I find at the SHOT Show range day. Thank you all for sticking with me. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I will address them as soon as I'm able to. And if there is, once again, if there's anything you want me to look at SHOT Show that starts on Tuesday, again, put it in the comments and I'll make a note of it. Thank you all, and good night.